Hello, welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
And I'm KristaLyn. And this week we're going to talk about magic and Halloween and Hocus Pocus, which is going to be really fun.
This was an episode topic that our patrons voted on. So we are going to honor that and talk about the magic representation as well as the high vibrationist of both Hocus Pocus 1 and Hocus Pocus 2, mostly the second one since that just came out, but like kind of focusing on it overall, the phenomenon that is those films, because we talk a lot about high vibration stories and we talk about them in books, but that doesn't mean that they aren't in film and TV too, which we know we've mentioned. So we wanted to chat about that and to celebrate the funness that is Halloween. And we are recording this the day before the eclipse night, I guess is how I'm going to say that.
Well, here, the eclipse is going to happen at like very early in the morning tomorrow for me. So
yeah,
that'll be
it's nighttime tonight.
Yeah, kind of. The applying eclipse is tonight. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's the balsamic eclipse. Ooh.
Yeah.
And to anybody out there who has Scorpio and Taurus on the angles in your chart, we're with you. We feel you. We see you. It's going to be okay. Well, it's not as scary. Sometimes it can be like this big, new, good thing. I just got very good news in my life. So, and it's, happening very angular for me and for the person who just got the news. Actually, for all the people I know that is having it angular, we got good news this week. So.
Yeah. And did I get good news this week? Well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not angular, it's on your moon, but
it's on my moon. That's what it is. Yeah. It's like something else with angular for me. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
Let me just say it that way. Like, I know there's something else that was angular. We had the Venus Cassimi, and that was very intense.
That was angular for you. That was in your ascendant.
That's what it was. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's what it was. It was very intense for me. I'm Venus ruled. So.
Your big three are getting big hit right now because Mars is in Gemini, about to station retrograde for everybody. That's happening on the 30th this week. And we will be talking a bit about that, things to think about. And so that's near your sun.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled with the retrograde of Mars. I don't know why. I just love it. Let's retrograde.
I feel like it's going to let some of the pressure out. It feels like the Instapot is ready and you let the valve go and it's steaming, but at least it's steaming. Like the pressure goes down a little bit, even though now we have to go back and really work with this stuff. And honestly, my big insight into this is the stuff that has been overwhelmingly coming at us rapid fire since around August 20th is going to slow down, and we're going to have to recover those tracks. But Mars is assertive. So we're reasserting ourselves in a lot of things. Mars is actionary. We're reacting to what happened. And we're now strategizing, which is another thing that Mars does. When Mars pauses to think, as Mars is doing, pausing to think in Gemini, that's strategizing. That's the person saying, okay, I know what's on the field. Now, how am I going to move the pieces? The question that I think we should ask ourselves between now and January is, where is my energy most effective? Because Mars is going to show us where we're feeling fatigued and where we're a little burned out.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So, check Gemini in your chart for that. And if you have degrees natally between 8 degrees Gemini and 25 degrees Gemini, you're probably feeling this a little extra because those are the degrees Mars is covering. And so we're going to be noticing this between now and January, and then wrapping it all up between January 13th and March 15th. And Mars will peace out of Gemini at the end of March. So
I'll be in Rome on March 16th. So
nice. So right after, you'll be able to be done with all that, moving on. Love it.
And my Saturn will be done. So all of it, it'll be great.
Yes. Yeah. March and Pluto will be moved into Aquarius. So anybody who's been dealing with stuff around that. Yeah. So it's a big shift March. Yeah. I like that you're going to be there on the Ides of March too, in Rome.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Checks out. That's perfect. The other thing this week on the 28th is that Jupiter will be retrograde ingress into Pisces, back into Jupiter's domicile. So Jupiter had triplicity in Aries, not so bad, but we're at least at home and feeling queasy.
Mhm.
I imagine I imagine Jupiter's feeling kind of like I did when I visited Tahoe last year and got food poisoning.
Yep.
Just that, like, I'm a little nauseous. I don't know what to do about this, but at least you get to feel that way at home on your own couch. Um, and Jupiter, therefore, is actually getting ready to station direct as well, which I think he's going to do that in November. So yay.
Nice.
The last time, for reference, that Jupiter was in Pisces, things you might notice coming back up would have happened in whatever house is ruled by Pisces in your chart, whatever area of life that is, around December 29th, 2021 through May 10th, 2022. So anything that was going on around that time that was expansive and moving forward and growing and really probably spiritual for you in whatever area of life that is, you may notice that comes back up to say hello.
Yeah. Of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. I think that's going to help a lot of people, actually.
Yeah.
When I feel that energy, I think that's going to be very helpful.
Yeah. I'm calling it soothing the burns.
I was like, not like a full awakening, but more like all right, that's true. My friends are here. Like, think of that sort of energy, which I appreciate.
Well, when I was scripting my transit skits for this week, one of the things that came out, because I look at everything and then I sort of channel how to synthesize it all. And it was learning to dream without the fear of nightmares.
Oh, that's cute.
Because a lot of us have gotten a little like nervous about hope lately. Like, dare I hope? And now we're going to learn how to hope again without being afraid of some kind of crazy fallout thing. And I'm hoping that's the case. Like, that's my hope. I think it's likely, because that's what we're looking at in the chart as well, especially once Jupiter goes direct. Like I said, sometime next month. So here's hoping.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool. So as we said, today's episode topic is going to be those reviews, and that is because we have some awesome patrons that voted on it. If you'd like to vote on episode topics, please join our Patreon. We'd love to have you in there. We're still kind of like mind blown that like people are in there and they appreciate it. And we just appreciate you all so much. Like, thank you for being part of there. There's 3 tiers. The 3 tiers get you something, extra. And for those in our top tier, they get a bonus video each month from us. This month's bonus video is Krista made a Braharai video, which is really cool.
Yeah. It's Braharai, if that helps. It took me a while practicing to get used to saying it very well. But it was an interesting journey even making that video. We did a video or a episode a couple weeks ago for anybody who's listening and remembers, on closed practices, where a patron had asked about closed practices. And I remember bringing up Braharai and how the person who is kind of the most knowledgeable in our line, it's not exactly hierarchical in our little group, but the one who has taught most of us doesn't want it to be closed, wants to teach everybody, but stresses that it is a traditionally Christian thing. And I'm not saying traditionally Christian as an evangelical or even churchy. We are very welcoming. We are, many of us are queer and all of those things. It's welcoming to anybody, but the faith in God and the belief that the Bible can be useful as a grimoire and that the words can be useful in treating and helping people is essential. And I say that with confidence now because of when I tried to make the video for Patreon. And I tried it 3 different times saying, like, insert your deity here. And my whole thing would shut down. And then I tried again and I was like, okay, but you can do this however you want. It's not closed, adapt it to your thing. And it shut down again. And I said, okay, I'm going to try this one more time, but I'll make sure it's specific to like this sort of theology. And when I did, it worked. So keeping that in mind, that it's not necessarily a closed practice, but I think the energies we're working with in Braharai do prefer the Christian model.
And the video is all about protecting yourself from curses, basically. So and very excited. It's not like an informative, like, this is what Braharai is. It's like it's an actual charm. Which is really cool. So that is a couple of cool benefits of our Patreon, but we also have 2 other really exciting announcements that we want to announce first before we dive into the content for today's episode. A couple of reasons for that. We like you all. That's the number one.
Always the number one. That's why we're here.
And also because we are announcing it to you all first before we announce it on any social platforms or anything like that. So the 2 announcements. Announcement number 1 So we have another retreat that we are launching, an international retreat. This one is next August, and it's going to Ireland, and it is a specific writing focused spiritual retreat. So we are focusing on fiction and writing fiction for this retreat. But it is in Ireland, literally like coast to coast Ireland, which is really cool. And I'm really excited about this one. It's super duper exciting to me.
Me too. I can't wait because it's magic and writing and, tapping into your intuition. It's a lot of those things, but also in Ireland, which is really cool. And we're going to get into the practicality of magic practices, the practicality of writing, and even dipping into like, what do you do when you're done writing, which is probably the scariest thing. That would be the publishing arm. But we're there to answer questions and make things feel tangible and, like doable. As all magic and writing should feel.
And it's a small group. It's even smaller than the Greece group. Again, because we are focusing on writing and want to help you develop your story. So if Greece felt like maybe, but no, this might be why it felt like maybe, but no, feel out that. If you've always wanted to write a book, but you, have an idea, but you don't know where to go with it, this is a great retreat to go on with us. And there is still 3 early bird spots available, which have a discount. All of the information for this Ireland trip, including the entire itinerary, FAQs, the price, there's multiple pricing payment plans that are really flexible and doable. So you can check those out. All of the information is available via the links in either of our bios, any social media, anything. So go check those out. And it's really exciting. And the tickets are on sale right now. So it's not something you got to wait for. It is right now. So go check it out before it fills up, basically. We're really excited to offer this to you all and really excited to go travel and write. Like, we're going to go channel the fairies. Like, we got stuff going on. And we're really, really excited to story collect with you.
And we're also going to have a really good trip in Ireland. Like, you're going to visit Ireland. We're not just going to be like, no, magic only. We're going different places. We're traveling around Ireland. We're doing experiences in Ireland. It's a vacation as much as it is a retreat. So
we're
don't
going
think
to
you're going to miss
castles.
out on anything.
We're going to castles. We're tasting Irish whiskey. We are, going to the cliffs and watching birds nest. I mean, we're doing so many really cool touristy and not touristy magical things all together. It's very exciting. And we're going to focus a lot on block releasing and stuff too. So there's a lot of fun stuff in there.
And the link to that is in both of our bios in whatever social you want to check out, and might also be in the description of the video and the podcast episode. So
potentially might be.
We'll try to make that happen.
We'll try to make that happen. The other really exciting thing, also in the writing vein, is we are opening up pitches once again for the Forgotten Storytellers, which is our writing program.
Can you tell Mercury's out of shadow phase and we're just like, we can do all the things now.
Look at all this stuff. So we know that a lot of you have reached out previously and been like, oh, I'm going to hold off until the fall cohort or the winter cohort. Like, that's this one. So please go ahead and pitch us. When we say pitch us, just your messy fiction story idea. That's what we're asking for.
You've clicked the link to pitch and there's a form that tells you exactly what to write. So you don't have to like stress out about it. Just go in, fill out the form, and you're done. And it's that easy. And it should be that easy, to be honest with you. And I'm glad that we can accommodate that.
And just for a quick rundown, basically the program is 4 months long, and we help you write the first draft of a high vibration fiction novel that will heal all the people who read it. It's equal parts a spiritual program as it is a writing program. We help you talk to your guides. We release blocks for you, help activate you as both an author and as a person so that you can really craft these worlds through channeling your characters, through your personal astrology, through all of these very magical, beautiful things, so that the story that you were always meant to create can actually get out into the world. And that is our whole goal. Plus, we do have a writer's retreat that happens in the US for that one.
It's foreign if you're not from the US, but that's 2 retreats then. Yay.
So we're really excited about this next cohort. It is going to be starting in January. So we're accepting pitches now, so we can get you all going in January. So don't stress like that you're going to be doing it over the holidays or something. You're not. We hold space for that. So you can start in January.
And we are going to be doing a lot of new things with this cohort. So it's going to be exciting to try some new and exciting stuff. The retreat's going to be in a different location. We have some new ways to offer things. It's going to be fun.
We're very excited about it. Very excited about it. It's going to be great. So anyway, those are our 2 big announcements. If you have questions on them, you can comment on the YouTube, or you can email us, forgottenstorytellers@gmail.com. We will answer whatever questions you have on either experience. Just let us know, but please submit your pitches. We want to help you write your books. It's really fun.
Yeah, and it helps the world. Like,
it
we
helps
know
the world
that
so much.
one person can change the world, but a lot of us can do a lot more. So what we want to do is help you to be one of the people that changes the world, and your book can literally touch countless lives. So if you feel like you could share a story that could help people, we will help that become a reality from like conception to creation.
And fiction. Fun
fiction
story.
Yes.
Very important. Okay, cool. So let's talk magic and movies, shall we?
Yes, magic and movies. And it's so cool too, because it's Hocus Pocus too. And I'm a 90s kid. My grandmother introduced me to Hocus Pocus when it came out originally. It was a staple in my entire childhood. My grandmother has a background in Welsh magic and talked about it a lot, but never really taught us anything about it. So I always pictured my grandmother and her 2 sisters as the Sanderson sisters. Like, one of them was blonde, one of them was brunette, one of them was redhead. So it was just really interesting to grow up with that, because they would put their minds together and said that they made things happen. So especially in Hocus Pocus 2, when they talk about like your coven is everything and all of those things, it was interesting to me to I lost my grandmother in 2021. So watching Hocus Pocus 2 this time and just remembering that and seeing like, oh, wow, there's more connections between my great aunts and my grandmother than I recognized at first, especially now that I'm even more well-versed in my personal folk magic practices. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. So Hocus Pocus was also a staple for us. It was also the scariest movie that I would be willing to watch, which I know it's not scary, but that is genuinely a thing for me. So it was the scariest movie I'd be willing to watch. And it was definitely a staple. And I think that's a very common like 90s kid thing. I think it's really beautiful. And it's a statement on how high vibration the first movie is. When it came out, it flopped big in the theaters. Like, it was not a well-received film in the theaters, and then it pretty much instantly became a cult classic amongst kids as soon as it hit VHS tapes. And now it was, popular enough for Disney to continue the series, and I think that is a huge statement. As far as the second one, I love a lot of the high vibration concepts that came from it. I love the way that magic was used and described in a lot of ways. I have some issues with the actual like writing and craft of the film. It felt like a Disney Channel movie to me.
Yes, it did.
It felt like a Disney Channel movie, where the first one felt like, it was a movie. It was a produced film. This one was a Disney Channel movie, and like the dynamics between the characters weren't really very fleshed out. It was a lot of like classic tropey kind of character feels, and like that stuff kind of bugs me. I do like what they're trying to do, and Disney is becoming more and more versed in like how popular metaphysical things are and witchcraft is. I do think it was hilarious, the one scene, and there will be spoilers in this, guys.
Spoiler alert.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal if we spoil it, I don't think, but spoiler alert. If you go watch it and come back and listen, that one scene where she picks out a crystal and she just like walks in and grabs one random amethyst cluster, and like that's the crystal she picks, and then that's the one that they use, and they're like lighting the black flame candle. Not only do they leave the crystal on the ground, never fucking grab it again. Amethyst is like the weirdest stone choice ever for what like, it was definitely someone in the production team or someone in the writing team was just like, these are crystals and they're pretty, like just like put them there.
But I wonder if the way that it turned out, if amethyst being there maybe infused it with, we're going to bring a higher connection back to the sisters and like bring the moral back into the story for them instead of just children eating witches. But and also
but it was just very funny.
I know, like I'm reaching here. I'm trying, Disney. I'm trying. I think I've got your back. I hope I do. But on the note of children eating witches, which is with that is what the whole concept of the first movie was. Like, they're going to come little children, I'll take thee away. But I was really fortunate to happen upon a TikTok that had an interview with Kathy Najimy, who played Mary Sanderson. And it was with her from back in the 90s. So around like 97, I think, when the movie first came out. And she was saying that she was very intent in the first movie of the awareness that some people were culturally part of witchcraft, and that she didn't want the issue of children eating to be so overplayed that it actually hurt that culture. And she also explained, because she did research into it, like, God bless Kathy Najimy, or whatever deity you work with, may they bless Kathy Najimy.
Right.
Because she went and actually researched and talked to people. She and in the interview said, I'm like a Christian person, but these people are out there and they matter. And she went to them and found that historically, which I think another thing this movie does really well is rectifying the history a little bit. Historically, people would go in to see a witch or a medicine woman, right? And they would be pregnant, and they might come out not pregnant anymore.
Yeah.
Now we can fill in that blank, especially in today's culture, what would have happened. But what the townsfolk said happened was that the witch ate the baby. And obviously that's not a fair image for them to have carried. So I do like that at least exists out there as a footnote in an interview from the 90s. And I do notice that Kathy Najimy was elemental and instrumental in this remake, or this sequel as well. So you could tell, like, when they went to the pharmacy.
Yeah.
And I loved, because I say this all the time, and I know I'm not the only one who says it, but like, the pharmacy is the apothecary. Okay. That's what it is. And those things are potions, even though we call them lotions. That's how practical magic is. That's how magical lotions are. You shouldn't use them. No, seriously, it's the same thing. It's just modern. Yeah. And I really appreciated, even though the scene was a little bit cheesy, I appreciated that kind of acknowledgement and that aha moment for anybody who was watching. Loved that.
I do want to say that's a whole other reason, and I can talk for hours on this, to get ethically sourced stuff. It doesn't always have to be like a small business stuff, of course, but just ethically sourced in general. I was having this conversation as one of my good friends manages a CVS. And so I was having this conversation with him, and he was like talking about the different products I was like getting. And I was like, as long as it's vegan and it has a happy little rabbit on it, I'm much more likely to get it. And those are like very important things to me, like very ethically sourced, cruelty-free stuff, because it is modern magic. And if you're putting it on your body, it needs to have that intention kind of there too. If you, of course, you can afford it. And I know that that's a privilege thing. And I'm not trying to like say in any way, like, I did not acknowledging my privilege in that space. I know that it is, but that's just another way. Like, if you make your own stuff, or if you're, conscious about it, it's important, because it is magic. It is the modern day apothecary. And I think that's really important to highlight.
Yeah.
Even though lotions contain no child souls, unfortunately. Just want to throw.
Unfortunately. I do also acknowledge that, like, in traditional folk magic practices, the idea was to combine something from every matter under the in the sublunar sphere, really. So you would take a celestial timing to honor the universe, but you would take something that was of Saturnian nature or of Venusian nature from the animal, mineral, and vegetable kingdoms. And so that's why in, like, you'll see Eye of Newt and Tongue of whatever, because the eye and that animal had a planetary attribution that would go along with what was going on. So traditionally, it made, like, that's what they had to work with. And that's why they incorporated animal ingredients. These days, I personally would avoid it, because I like to connecting with nature rather than, but there are ways to even responsibly source. If you want to do it that detailed, there are ways to responsibly source these pieces and these ingredients as well. An animal that's already passed, that kind of stuff. So just know that whatever you're looking to do, there are ways to go about it. But again, the access to it, I have not discovered the best way to do it yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to, but it's on my radar that that's a possibility. I was talking to some magicians who do go that direction during Astromagia a couple of weeks ago.
Interesting. Yeah. The other thing I really like about the film is the very subtle feminism that is all throughout the film. And I think it's really beautiful, because we are just getting into a place culturally and societally where we're exploring the fact that women gathering does equal magic in a lot of ways. And that includes, women presenting people, non-binary individuals. I'm just talking like people with a lot of deep feminine energy. So we're not talking to like eliminate anyone. And I don't want anyone to think that, because that's not the case. but it's really cool to see that explored in a film like this, where it is geared towards children. So children actually get to see that expressed.
Normalized.
Yeah, the whole like birthday ritual thing, and they go out into the forest together. I thought that was really cute. I also have done that with friends since I was itty bitty, not birthday specific, but rituals like that. So I thought that was really adorable. But like the mirroring of like a one woman alone who had lost her coven, then to have an established coven of the sisters, and then to have a found family coven. I thought that was a really cool like mirroring and pulling together. And also the couple throwaway lines they had about the patriarchy were just chef's kiss great.
Yeah. Well, and two things about that, like the keeper of the museum / the holistic shop was assigned male at birth, you know, but was very high vibration feminist energy, even though, you know, the intentions were a little mixed at first. But again, if you look at the root of the intentions, you could go into the complexities of that. And I appreciate that. I also like how they handled the perceived villain, or even the pseudo villain, which would be the dad. Because he was also great, right? Like there was not a point in the movie where you're like, oh yeah, totally, I hate that guy. Because but the other person that the same actor played, you see the error there. So you can see someone who even would be, I would assume, like totally identifies as like male and all of those things, but still not being a jerk, you know? So you can see how someone can be at home in their assigned gender and sexuality and, and still be nice. And even a politician and
he
still
was
be
a
a kind
politician.
person. All he wanted was a candied apple
that
whole time. And he was so patient when I went through all the stuff. Like the true hero's journey there was for that guy getting the candied apple.
He's one of, was talking about high vibration media. He's one of my favorite actors because everyone from Arrested Development is one of my favorite actors. They are so good. And if you have not seen Arrested Development, it is fabulous. And it's very high vibration about dysfunctional family and loving each other anyway. And it's also just absolutely ridiculous. But every time I see him, I get very excited because he's just so good at that character. That like genuine just person that is just patient and kind and just shows up constantly.
Maybe a little bit on the naive side, but hey.
Very much, very naive the whole time, always. But I thought that was really sweet and well done.
I think you brought this up when we were talking before the episode, the way bullying was even addressed.
Yeah. How my kids got such a kick out of that, by the way, the way bullying was addressed. So basically the bully, who was definitely bullying, didn't understand that was bullying. Like he had no concept, and then he like realizes it later on, like, oh my God, I have so many people to apologize to. I thought I was just making conversation. He didn't get it, which is also a little neurodivergent, which I appreciated. Like they threw that in. This movie was very representative. Like they had multiple drag queen scenes. There was a lot of very obvious like queer love happening in different spaces, lots of different ethnic backgrounds being represented. And I love that. Like, let's bring that into modern everything. Like, yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah. And none of it was in your face or out loud because it was normal in the context of the movie. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like very cute and sweet. And just like, this is just it. But yeah, even with the bullying space, he's presented like kind of an idiot anyway, but genuinely, like he's just a genuine sweet person, and then he turned, but they viewed him as a bully, and it turns out he's not. It was like a very cool cyclical thing. I do think that I know what they were trying to do. I don't think the execution was 100% there with a lot of stuff. As far as the representation of magic, it wasn't the same consistent magic as it was from the first one, which always bothers me. Where they could have kept it consistent and it would have been fine. It didn't need additional stuff, but they added the additional stuff in just a little bit for shits and gigs, I think.
And to help people feel seen for whatever range of magic they're in right now, I think.
And so there was a little bit of like weirdness there. I don't think that translated super duper awesome. And the characters I don't think translated super duper awesome from the first one to the second one either. I think the writers of the first one really should have been brought back in to do the second one to keep the characters consistent. And I don't think they were, or if they were, there was some misses there.
I wish the music would have been integrated more smoothly and like woven in more smoothly. Because I wanted to hear them sing something. Did it hit the same as I'll Put a Spell on You did in the original? No, because that one fit. It
Yeah.
worked so perfectly. And this one was like, oh, here it comes. Am I excited? No, because it was one way or another.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it, but also I would have liked a different song choice, and how they came singing,
Mhm.
which I, again, loved that. I missed them kind of having a number or a ditty to do, but also it felt plugged in.
Mhm.
And like it transitioned things well. Like they made them not so oblivious in their singing. Like they were singing for a purpose. She even says like, who are they singing for? And then the character Mary's like, you, and it came in, it was good.
Yeah.
But I think the song choice could have been more conscious, or just, more on
Yeah.
point.
Also, it was pointless. That was the other issue I had. They sang to cast a spell on everybody, right? And then the spell
And
brought
didn't work.
everybody to the mayor dude, and it worked, but they weren't following the people anymore, so it didn't fucking matter.
Yeah,
Like
they were going
the
too
whole thing
slow.
was to rob the mayor of his candied apple. That was the entire like result of all of this energy, instead of like, we're going to get these parents to dance all night so they can't help their kids so that we
Mhm,
get to keep, like, we get to eat all the kids. Like that made so much more sense for the first
mhm.
movie. This one was just like, we need a singing number. What is it going to do?
Yeah.
And I feel I just think they could have done it much better.
Yeah. I get the sense that the budget and the timeline were not super supportive to the quality overall
Yeah.
of the story.
Mhm.
And that's forgivable, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's enough about what they accomplished, even with that I'm
Yeah.
impressed by.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'll be watching it every year the way I would watch Hocus Pocus, but it's a
No.
nice little like bookend to it.
Yeah. What I really did like is they did the thing that Krista and I talk about all the time, where they humanized the villains
Mhm.
so much so, and made, they actually, and that was the one thing that was consistent, is the most important thing to them in the first one and the second one was family, and was the sisters, like that sisterly bond. And so giving the historical context of why that was so important, and then also how it still translated even after they died twice, and that was still the most important thing, and like willing to
Mhm.
sacrifice anything for that, was really huge. I also do really like that Book became a character.
Yes, that book
I
had a will. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Book being more than just an accomplice, and
Mhm.
more of like, no, like, this is, I hold the magic, I have the cards, which is what grimoires historically were anyway, like
Mhm.
very, very much so. And they have like, you can go look at ancient grimoires in museums and stuff, and we're talking far predating like Wicca and stuff like that, like old
Mhm.
folk magic stuff or old alchemy stuff. And you feel the energy coming off of that,
Yeah.
of like, oh,
Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
this is
Yeah.
a this is big. Like,
When when you read books like Picatrix, which
yeah.
is used predominantly in astrological magic, and it's the one, one of the grimoires I read studying astrological magic. That thing is old,
Hmm.
and it's also important to realize that the grimoires have a life of their own, because they're written in such a way that if you don't know what you're doing, you could hurt yourself. There are
Very much so.
warnings. I remember when I was learning, my mentor was like, be careful, because some of these things are written so that if you don't know what you're doing, this will make you ill or kill you,
Yeah.
so that you no longer can take the
Can do
power
this.
from this. Yeah, you no longer
Hmm.
could, abuse the practice. And so you want to make sure that you're respecting what you're using by having the knowledge to support your actions. And when you do that, you gain sort of like a moral understanding and an ideology to go along with what you're doing, which really informs the actions you take. And I think
Yeah.
that is really a neat chain that happens. And again, even if you're using, like in Brahmarai, we use the Bible as a grimoire. We're not
Yeah.
using it the way the preacher uses it on Sunday. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
We're using it. One of my books says, like, if only preachers knew how powerful of a grimoire this book actually is, not necessarily as a historical record, but as a grimoire
Yeah.
with context and cultural reference and all of those things to go along with it. Because grimoires aren't just spells and
No.
ingredients. They usually have context and history, and like, understand this when you're doing that. And I don't necessarily think the entire Bible and all of it, because we don't use all of it for the work that we do in Brahmarai. I think there were people who had says in what went into what we now know as the Bible throughout history. And that makes it a little bit hard to weed your way through, but Picatrix does the same thing. Maybe they did allow it because it took someone who knew what they were looking for to find and be able to use it.
I mean, you can't take humanity out of history. Like, it's all a record of someone's opinions and thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite TikToks, and I watch it all the time because I just find it so funny. Anytime I'm frustrated with the historical record while I'm writing La Costa, I go back and watch it, and it's just, like, it's like modern historians is how she shows it, and they're like trying to figure out what the exact price of a bale of straw was at this particular date and time, and they're like flipping through and pulling out their hair, and then it cuts to like ancient historians talking about someone's dream that their cousin's dream that they had about an event that may or may not happen, and they're just like chilling, like writing it down, and that's so accurate. That's how it was.
But I've also, I follow some very knowledgeable people on TikTok that I highly recommend. Like, they are smarter than me, but I have heard them say that the Torah is a debate between rabbis. I think this, well, I think that. And you get to see this rabbi thought this at this point. This rabbi thought this maybe about the same subject, or they're recording debates that were going on between rabbis in the Torah. And so you're seeing the evolution of how have we thought about this already so that we can inform how we think about it next. And I think that's such a cool document to be able to build off of. Again, I am not the person who has a right to make definitive statements on this, but it's very interesting to me. And I like that open mindset of like, here's what I've learned, take it and make it progress it, take it further.
Yeah. One thing on that note that I appreciated was in the movie, the second one, she got free herbs from the magic shop or whatever, and it wasn't white sage and it wasn't Palo Santo. And I was so thrilled. Like, they took an herb that has no close practice that I know of around it, and they actually like utilized that, and that meant that they had some cultural sensitivity, and I really appreciated that a lot. Also the way salt worked was cool in this one, and also just like the concept of magic and how magic is intention, and you need other people to have it. Like, it's actually a pretty decent representation of how magic actually works. Like, genuinely, they did use a Wiccan spell for their birthday ritual though, which I thought was kind of funny.
I mean, I do like though that there was like this little coven understanding relationship between them. Like, they had that bond translated really well.
Right. And the parents were accepting of it. Can we just like that part of it? Like, the dad, the really nice dad who just wanted a candy apple, like, he was like, oh, aren't you going to the forest to do your birthday ritual? Like, he was fully accepting of this like alternative magic thing that his daughter, and not doing it in like a silly bypassing, like, oh, do your silly ritual. He was like, aren't you doing that? Like, that's what you always do, like holding space. And I really like little Emily really appreciated that. Like, I noticed that immediately. My kids never would notice because of course we do magic everything. Like, everything is normal, but like little Emily really cared. He
was more bothered by the fact that she was throwing a party than he was by the fact that she might be spending the night in the woods doing magic.
100%. Which fair. Like, that should be how it is. You should be bothered by the party. And the funniest thing is he was bothered by the party and then still left her again. Like, I'm so disappointed in you. And as he left, he was like, love you.
I love you, but I could still get that apple. And then,
it was very,
somebody got him that apple.
No. Well, the funniest thing about that too, at one point, when they were doing the spell to be super duper duper magic or whatever, Shadow looked at me and she was like, why are they doing that again? I thought it was to all kill the priest guy. And I was like, oh shit. I don't know why we lost that storyline a while ago. Like, it's gone because they had already gotten like it didn't make any sense anymore. They wanted to live forever, I guess, but it was just, it kind of got muddled and like washed out in there. But
they were running out of time. I think because they were running out of time, they needed to be able to live forever before, without getting revenge, or have more time to get revenge. So they needed to be able to get past sunrise. And if they had all the power, they'd be able to get past sunrise and then do whatever they want. I think so.
It got muddled. It got confusing. It like, where the first movie, very consistent motivation and story.
Well, the motivation was very simple too. Like the character growth didn't really draw them towards a different goal.
No. So that was also kind of a miss. Overall, I love the first one. The second one had cool stuff that I appreciate we're trying to do culturally.
Also, I really liked, I can't remember the name of the person who ran the shop, and their storyline was with Billy.
Yes.
The
What's magic men.
Yeah. But the relationship of Billy being pseudo betrayed, like Billy totally accepted that. And he was like, you know what? Fine. I don't need you. And then he was still there to come in clutch.
Yeah.
That was a really high vibe, like authentically divine masculine kind of interaction too.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was neat.
Yeah. I'm also really happy that they left Binks's character alone.
I know they kept hinting with the cat. And I was just like, is there, or are you just giving us a cat so that we can see a cat and be like, maybe maybe a cat is watching over kind of thing, but it ended up being a crow was watching over by the end of it, or a raven. I'm not sure which one it was specifically, but yeah. It
was cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. And I think that was cool to incorporate kind of the familiar energy, the animal familiar stuff.
Well, and the fact that I think this time, rather than being Binks, the cat was nature watching. Just the spirit of nature. I think that was really cool.
Yeah. I'm just happy they let him rest. They didn't let Billy rest, but they let Binks rest, and that's good.
I think Billy finally does rest now, but we'll see.
I was thinking that one of them was going to be a child of one of the old characters, like the two characters that fell in love. I thought that was what we were going to go with. And it wasn't. I think that would have been cool.
If they had a bigger budget, it might have been.
I think that might have been the problem. I also think that Danny should have been the shop owner.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been cool. But
astrologically, there was something that was very almost cool about this that is very nuanced. So it was 30 years or 20, I think it was
29.
It was 29 years. A lunar period is 25 years, I think. I'd have to look this up, but you can look up each planet has a period of years and they have minor periods. So a lunar minor period, this was almost a lunar minor period, which would have put the full moon at the same date at the same time and all of those things. So when they were like, it's been 29 years, I was like, wait, and I had to look and I'm like, oh crap, just a little bit off, but so close to actually honoring the astrologically correct period of the planets. Yeah,
that's cool. I appreciate that. You would be the only one who noticed that. I know.
I brought it up with my mentor and she was like, yeah, that's so close.
Right. Okay. So we do have two really quick questions we want to address from the Patreon. One, I'm going to start with the kind of Halloween one because that's still our theme. And then one is from our last episode. Someone had a question on Saturn return stuff. So, and again, if you want to be able to ask us questions that we answer on the episode, Patreon. I'm just going to keep plugging it, mostly because I just think it's really cool that we get to interact with you all.
By the way, it is 25 years for the moon. Just saying.
Okay. Of course, you've verified. I appreciate that.
I had to. I don't want to give bad information.
It matters. It matters. Okay. So the question is, I'm wondering if there's a correlation between hating Halloween and being very sensitive or intuitive as a young child, because I always felt like the other people weren't aware of the things that I was scared of. And this question really goes along with conversations Krista and I have had kind of a lot recently about being scared and being intuitive. The first thing I want to, we both hate scary movies so deeply, hate them. The first thing I do want to state on this though, is if you do find that you are still scared of stuff like that, like scary movie stuff, becoming real, or spirits or whatever, I will say more often than not, it is the younger version of you that is afraid, and the older version of you is just still stuck with those limiting beliefs, because now you're more powerful than anything that could come your way, and that tends to be something that comes up. So I always just want to highlight that if you see something you are still struggling with, where you're like, oh, I'm scared to talk to ghosts or work with my guides or whatever, because it feels like scary movie feeling, probably you were scared as a little kid, and that's just translated through, and you don't need those beliefs anymore. So I always want to just start it off knowing that.
Yeah, I will also say, for me personally, my problem with scary movies is they put a vivid image in my head, and then that image sticks with me as I try to go to sleep. And my biggest problem as a child was seeing faces when I was trying to sleep, or seeing things in my room when I was trying to sleep. So I just don't like having something to picture that is scary looking, that my brain can be like, surprise, I hate this, and so do you, as I'm trying to sleep. So, when you have an experience that feels a lot like having these images in your head, the last thing you want to do is give your brain something to show you that doesn't necessarily reflect real life, but because it feels so close to it, yeah, it's not comfy. And there is nothing wrong with just not watching them. I am 32 years old.
Not participating in Halloween.
Do it. Yeah. When Emily was visiting a couple weeks ago, my husband loves horror movies, and bless him. But he turned on Paranormal Activity, one of the numbers. And I was like, okay, it's been a couple of years. I'm going to try it. I'm going to show I'm brave, blah, blah, blah. By the end of it, I was like, nope, because I got it. I saw the image of something. I went downstairs in the dark where I'm alone, and my brain's like, hey, there's nothing to look at here. Here's an image. And I'm like, no, I don't want the image. So I scurry back upstairs.
So funny because Krista's sitting there trying it, and I walk in and I'm like, nope, I'm not watching this. I'm done.
My Mars like, I'm up for the challenge. And then it was like, no, I've decided to just be mad at it instead. Yeah. But then later, and I hope this validates for you all as well, if you're feeling this way. Later, my husband made the comment of, if it's something you're used to, shouldn't it bother you less? And I made the analogy, and I don't know how fair of a comparison this was. It felt right to me in the moment, but it was like when someone comes back from serving overseas, and the first thing you want to do with them is watch Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
It's too real. And it reminds you of things that are too real. You wouldn't do that to someone in that context. And in this one, I think we have a right to say, hey, no, from experience, this is an uncomfortable situation for me, and I choose not to participate, like Emily said.
I know we both have seen some really scary shit spiritually. Like really, really scary shit. And fairly recently in some context. And
we'll be sharing some of those stories in next week's episode, right? Because we're doing this spooky story episode.
Yeah, that is the second place on the Patreon, is the spooky story episodes. We're doing spooky stories next week. We know it's after Halloween. We do not care. But we've seen some really haunting, creepy stuff. And so seeing that in like a during Halloween or scary movie thing is an issue. And also, like, intuitive children understand that there's way more to the world than a lot of adults do. So I think there's a big correlation between intuitive children and being really afraid of Halloween, because if you're really intuitive or even just really open as a child in general, those things probably felt a lot more real to you, because you understand that there is a reality out there where that character exists, or that, you know, spooky dead thing exists, or whatever it is. Like that is a thing that is accurate and real. So it feels more real to you than it feels to other people that use Halloween. It's like, haha, funny, dress up.
Yeah. And just as like, I think my final thought on this specific question, it's a lot easier to handle a spooky situation when you're in control of what you can do. When all you can do is sit and watch it happen to other people without being able to intervene, or without being able to choose fight or flight for yourself. I'm going to say it can be traumatic, because you're forced to just sit and observe and take this in and bear it, as compared to being able to act and process and do what you feel you need to do. Like when I'm dealing with traditionally scary, spooky, dark energies, I can deal with them. I can talk to it. I can, find out what it's looking for. There's a conversation that can be had, or there is a repelling kind of whatever I need to do. I can resolve the matter. In this, there's no resolution. We don't close the loop. And in high vibration fiction, we talk about this all the time. And this is not to say that horror can't be high vibe. Sometimes you need to allow yourself to feel those feelings, and it can help you process. So totally fine. Totally. But 100%. In high vibration fiction, especially when you're writing with us, you can go into the dark with someone. You can even lead them into the dark so they can encounter these feelings, but you give them a way forward. You always close the loop. Yeah. And that is one of I think the things that horror actually goes for, is not closing the loop. I think that's a very effective, scary technique. I just choose not to feel it. It's not a feeling I want.
I also, like, on the Halloween note specifically, if you were a particularly intuitive child, chances are good you were also a particularly anxious child, because you were feeling a lot more emotions, energies, and like vibrations than the people around you. And if you're already in that space, getting scared more doesn't feel like fun. It just doesn't feel like fun. Kids who weren't particularly anxious children, of course, getting scared a little bit is fun, because they don't experience that emotion on a day-to-day basis. I did. I experienced that emotions on a day-to-day basis. I've been an anxious person since I was born. Anxiety has always been normal. So getting more scared, having more reasons to be afraid, was never fun to me. It was just more scary, and that sucked. So I think that was also an element too, with being intuitive in that way. and not appreciating Halloween for the scary elements, because why would you want to be more scared?
And God forbid you have like a flavor of neurodivergence that leads to meltdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes this external thing that people now know you for. And then you can't live that down. So you have to internalize even more. And so it's totally valid to just not.
That being said, if you've always loved and embraced Halloween, you might be using the other side of the coping, and that doesn't mean you're less intuitive as a child. No. I want to just highlight that really true. I'm just saying there's probably a correlation. If you've always hated Halloween, chances are good it's because it felt really too real to you. The other side of that is you could have been really intuitive, and it's nice that everyone was validating that intuition on that day, and you really appreciated the scary elements of that. And that is also just as valid. So I do not want to eliminate anyone else's experience on that.
And that's the thing, like this, it's more upon like beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, right? So it's how you receive this form of entertainment and art that matters. If you are someone like the person asking this question, these answers might help. If that is not the experience that you relate to, great, you're doing great. Like continue, you're doing fantastic. And if you have questions about it, ask us and we'll look into that as well.
Yeah, you do you. So other question that we had just really quick is how to figure out when your Saturn return is. And that was on the last episode. And it's a very quick, like 2-sentence answer. So that's why we're just going to throw it in really quick. But
so here it is. Your Saturn return is when Saturn transiting comes back to where it was when you were born. You can consider your Saturn return to be the entire time that Saturn is in the sign, which lasts about 3 years. It'll happen around the time you're 27 to 30 years old, because Saturn takes about 27 to 30 years to go around. So when Saturn, if your Saturn natally is in Aquarius, you are in your Saturn return right now. If it's in Pisces, your Saturn return is beginning in March because Saturn will move in there. When it hits you directly on your degree, like Emily is experiencing right now, that is your direct Saturn return, like your partile Saturn return, whatever. It's just when it's the peak, it's the climactic moment of your Saturn return.
Yeah. For the record, sometimes people have longer Saturn returns than others as well, depending on retrogrades and stuff, right?
No, it's just,
really?
it'll last you about 3 years because Saturn retrogrades all the time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was wrong then.
Saturn goes in a circle. And so it's just always going to go in a circle.
Okay. I thought based on degrees, it might not retrograde over
based on, well, it's still in the sign. So if it's still in the sign, it's still that 3 years. You may get direct hits more. Like if it retrogrades over you, you're going to get 3 hits directly. But
See,
and if you were born at night, you might notice it a little bit more challenging. If you were born in the day, you might notice it less challenging, depending on the nature of the rest of your chart. You would need a reading to know for sure. And I do offer readings that help with that because Saturn return it's a crazy time. It is truly the coming of age moment. So congratulations, Emily, you're on your way.
I hate it. I don't hate it. It's fine. Whatever.
It stationed retrograde on my degree too. I went through exactly what you're going through. And it was not fun. I can validate your feelings. I am
over the perpetual identity crisis that is existing right now.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. But anyway, that's how to find it. But yeah, just a quick little answer there, just because we wanted to follow up on that. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, we were really excited for the announcements that we did. So come with us to Ireland, please. We only have, I think, 14 spots, and I think 6 of them already taken.
5 or 6, something like that.
Yeah. So limited spots right now, so please come with us to Ireland. We really want to have you there. If you feel drawn to it, muscle test, whatever it takes, do pendulum, do a card pull, whatever feels good to you. We'd love to have you in that space. Also, if you have an idea for a fiction book, feel free to pitch the Forgotten Storytellers. That is open just to you guys currently. So we are opening it just to the podcast for the next 2 or week and a half or so, and then we will launch that externally. So for that specifically, it is you guys get first priority with that,
because
only the Alchemists. Absolutely. Okay, but thank you all so much. We won't talk to you again until after Halloween. Have a happy Halloween. Have a amazing veil thinning week. Basically, I think the veil thins really consistently for like a week based on my own channeling. So that's what I'm holding space for. Oh, also, I am just really quick to throw this in there.
Your workshop will help you with this, right?
I am hosting a workshop where it's the first time I've ever actually taught a class on how to communicate with ghost spirits or entities around us, and my processes for doing so, which I've used since I was a very, very little kid. These are things that I've basically done my entire life. And I'm teaching that in a workshop on Friday. So the day after this comes out, So if you would like to be part of that workshop, please sign up. I would love to have you there. And we're going to do a lot of block pulling. I'm going to teach you very in-depth techniques. Plus there is a basically half an hour Q&A session with me about this topic, kind of for the whole group. And it's a smaller group that I maintain for the tickets. So I would really love to have you there. All the information is through the link in my bio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for spooky stuff, spooky season, and also just winter season, because there's a lot more spiritual communication that happens during winter season because things pull inside and go indoors because we pull inside and go indoors. So it's a really good time. Of course, we're talking Northern Hemisphere, but it's a really good time to perfect these skills because it's easier to communicate a lot of times with the ghost spirits and entities that might be around you during this kind of darker inside season.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope you have an amazing week. We'll chat with you next week, and we hope that you take some time and go make some magic. I don't know about that one.
That was perfect on my end.
Cool. Then it was lovely. It was perfect. I'm going to just hold space for it.
Yeah, it was perfect for at least some of us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.